welcome to the Edge Television broadcast.
Good to be here. Thank you for the invitation to come back on. It's been a while, but definitely a lot going on in the world and a lot to talk about today.
It sure is. Hopefully, you probably missed our opening or just a second ago because you got a southern accent there. You would appreciate we were doing some ZZ Top on this show.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in the South, proud to be a Southerner. So we've got all the guns on our side, Daniel.
Woo, literally or figuratively?
Both.
Well, Kevin, welcome back to the program. Man, you're right, absolutely right. There's a lot going on in the world, and I know you're a programmer. You get into tech and code and things. Well, let's just get to a couple of things real quick, and then we'll drill down as we can. Kevin, the is artificial intelligence involved with our election, vote counting?
Seems to be that there was, from what I've seen, an algorithm used that possibly was switching the votes at a certain threshold. And there are some that saying that it wasn't programmed to handle all the votes, and that's why the crash and they took down the machines. In the middle of the night, if you were watching the election coverage. And I mean, it's a definite real possibility as AI is being used in all aspects of our life right now. There's nothing, that is going to escape uh, the reach of artificial intelligence in our lives in the future.
It's interesting that it is part of the show. The Bear Report. I know you watch this show occasionally, at least. It was talking about the global reset. Well, the global reset will certainly need to be implemented or carried out through artificial intelligence because human beings have a tendency to be very adaptable to adverse circumstances, and we have a way of getting away with things, going around things, creating our rules, working under the table, whatever it takes to get the job done. And so it seems that there would have to be some sort of predictive technology to know that we would do that. For instance, creating a fraudulent vaccine license. Say, yeah, I got the vaccine. Here's my phone, and it says right here it was recorded on this day. But it would be hacked a hacked program that allows us to do that. You know, I'm going with this.
Yes. Well, and two, I mean, really, I see a lot. I've seen the story, and I checked it out about the patent that Bill Gates had, that had 666 in the name for the COVID vaccine. Yeah, I guess you may have seen that story. But, digging down into that, I saw something that was more frightening than a vaccine when it talked about this. When I actually went and pulled up the patent that had been applied now, it's not been it's not been approved. The patent hadn't, but this technology um, says on this as far as the patent goes. Hold on one second. I was digging through my notes here. I've got about 15 pages of notes, but the actual patent and the number, as I said, it's mentioned was 666, but it has to do with cryptocurrency and our body's activities. And to me, that's more frightening than any vaccine because they could tie that to anything. I mean, in the future, and you're talking about the Great Reset, and Trudeau in Canada was mentioning that the other day. And if you tie that to a universal basic income, which, that's where this is all pointing to, AI is going to come in and take everyone's jobs, and they're going to have to supply everyone with an income. So imagine if you're dependent on the government for your income, and their payments will be in cryptocurrency, and that is tied to, say, a body activity. Say, Daniel, your AI personal trainer. It looks at you and you're an AI life coach, and these things. If you've ever seen the advertisement for the Noom weight loss, that is tied to artificial intelligence. And so these things are coming quickly at us. So if your life coach says, Daniel, you've got your family has a history of heart disease. So I think you need to be taking 10,000 steps a day, and you're not working. So in order for you to get your basic income, you better get those 10,000 steps in.
Whoa.
So it's going to be a definite method of control, and probably in the future you'll be required to take the mark of the beast in order to get your income.
Uh, do you have any idea what the mark of the beast might be?
Well, according to the Bible, it is going to be a mark on your hand. I know there's a lot of debate. Some of the translations say in, and it talks about, may could be a microchip. Uh, and it will be tied in. I believe it will could possibly tie it in with a microchip. Although I just don't believe, there's a lot going around on social media today about it being a vaccine. And the Bible clearly states that the mark will be voluntary and you will do it out of your free will. So it's not going to be anything that you're going to be deceived into taking, like a vaccine. They're going to come around and give you the vaccine, and you're going to be taking the mark of the beast. That goes clearly against the scripture. It will be something that you will voluntarily do as an act of worship for the Antichrist.
Okay, so if they catch you and force you, inject it, stamp it, implant it, whatever they do, then that doesn't count.
Exactly. I mean, it cannot be something that's forced. Now, you may be coerced into doing it, saying, if you want your universal basic income, that's why that patent is so disturbing to me. It's going to be tied with bodily activity and cryptocurrency. I mean, the patent clearly states that. And so, why are they doing that? Why are they tying a cryptocurrency to your body activity? I
Hmm.
think in the end, it will be, hey, Daniel didn't take the mark. He
Hmm.
doesn't get his money. Him and his family will starve.
Hmm.
And that's part of the coercion. It won't be forced.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. You say that about bodily fluids and functions. It reminds me of the movie The Island. Do you ever see that movie where they've okay in the future, uh, celebrities and rich people would have these mad scientists on this island grow people, exact clones of themselves, so that when they needed a body part, they would get it from these clones. These clones didn't know they were clones. They thought they were on this island, but they were really just sitting there ready to be harvested. But when one of the characters wakes up in the morning, he goes and takes a leak, and while he's leaking, it's automatically reading the sodium and the nitrates and everything in his urine and saying you got too much salt. So it kind of reminded me of that right there.
That's right. And I've pulled it up now. It says here's the patent cryptocurrency system using body activity data. Human body activity associated with the task provided to use may be used in mining process of cryptocurrency system. A server may provide a task to a device of a user, so it may be a Fitbit, something of that nature, which communicatively coupled to the server. A sensor communicates uh, the device may sense body activity of the user. Body activity data may be generated based on the sensed body activity of the user. Of course, it keeps saying this over and over. The cryptocurrency system communicates to the device of the user may verily if the body activity data satisfies one or more conditions set by the cryptocurrency system. So I mean they can set it automatically. Say, Daniel, you have to do 10,000 steps or you're not going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, you have to eat a vegetarian diet. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look and see, that's the media is promoting veganism and vegetarianism very heavy, and the Bible prophecy speaks to that, and we can get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
they're going to control you and everything every aspect of your life.
It's interesting. There's this buying and selling concept going on, and I see in the live chat. Robert Griffin reminds us that Jesus died to purchase men for sin. I mean, there's a lot of these types of I don't know if they're metaphors or what you describe them. Purchased with a great price, a pearl of great price. He paid the price. There seems to be, and you might not be able, you would not be able to buy or sell without the mark. There seems to be definitely connected into the financial system, but also to the soul, as if the soul has a price affixed to it. And of course, I think the only person that can purchase that would be the Son of God from Christ or from God. But a couple more people logged in the live chat. I want to just shout out to them. This is my story. Welcome to the show, Believer 3.0. Tammy Hall, welcome to the program. Jules Holy War is in, and so is Fringe Radio Network back with us again. Kevin Shrum. So we've got technology as part of this whole thing, and it's easy to see with to me the first volley on this noticeable volley in the public domain was last week when Ticketmaster the news came out they were developing or they were going to set up a program to where you had to be tested in order to buy a ticket or to go to watch a concert, and that affirmation of you're either clear with COVID or you had a vaccine would be something on your phone. Of course, they went and backtracked that, but really that was just a first volley. You can easily see that concept is going to happen. They just kind of got in. They got that little splinter in their mind now. But I can imagine you won't be able to go to the show. You won't be able to go to, maybe even not even go to church unless you have that certification. But they're right. It does seem to be that this Cooties 19 thing is a panacea for everything the New World Order wants.
And Daniel, there's a very disturbing phrase that's being thrown around. Biden has said it in the debate. He has said it another time since. But not only him, governors around the country, medical professionals, and I think this is going to be what's going to usher in the reset. The phrase is dark winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, that is, I mean, regardless of what's going on with the election, and I like what you said in a program a couple of weeks ago. You said no matter who's inaugurated, in January, you and I, we still got to get up and live our lives, go to work, pay our bills. But with this dark winter coming, it could, whatever, if it's some kind of false flag or if they're just simply this COVID is going to somehow mutate into something, far deadlier, then this dark winter could very well prove to be what instigates this great reset.
Speaking of brain lapses, a problem with the brain, of course, anytime you talk about a deficiency in brain activity, you're talking about Joe Biden. We played a great clip just this week. This man's brain just fried out, and this guy's supposed. They want him the leader of the free world. This is unbelievable that somebody with such stupidity and brain malfunction is that close to the throne of the country. But with his brain meltdowns, he really kind of verified something that I've kind of got through the show over the years, and I've mentioned it to several guests, and I mentioned it to you. You might have heard me talk about it, but there seems to be something in the astral realm somewhere, in the heavenly realms, that if a great evil is going to happen to America, that it has to be announced. I mentioned it just a couple weeks ago, and then sure enough, Joe Biden has that classic statement, not only the dark winter statement. I don't know how who's supposed to get enthused about that. Hey, Joe's promising a dark winter. Let's vote for him. Okay, I don't know who that arouses. Gets excited, or funny things happen down their leg or whatever. I don't know who that does that to. It doesn't do nothing for me. Because besides that, I'm a alpha male. Okay, it wouldn't anyway. But I'm just saying, he announced, besides that dark winter, he said that we have established the greatest fraud system in the country. He announced that. Nobody has even asked the question. Well, Joe, I know you slipped up because you got so much on your mind trying to help the folks. You're trying to help the people, Joe. You got so many things you want to do for the country to undo tax cuts and throw down the borders and give health care to the world. We know in the Green New Deal, you got all that on your mind. But why did you say that? Why did you say that? What you said? About now. See, I'm having a Biden moment right now about the greatest fraud system in America. This is what exactly happened. I'm just saying something about this. He had to announce it, but nobody called him on it and said, "What did you mean by the greatest fraud thing?" He should explain. He said, "Oh, I meant the greatest protection against fraud." There's no way that you can re-say that to make it make sense. You know what I'm saying?
I know. And, if you ever seen the movie Inception, they had to plant the seeds in their thoughts. And it's sort of what you're talking about. They have to announce what's coming. And if it was just Joe Biden, and like you said, if he slipped up maybe once and said dark winter, he said it twice deliberately now. So that's definitely somebody's giving him the cue. But as I mentioned, just the other people that have said this, I'm going to read a quote. Here, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy on Thursday announced new restrictions for businesses regarding indoor use and added that unless everyone recommits to preventative measures to fight the coronavirus that were in place in the spring, we're in for a long, dark winter. Dr. Margaret Hamburg, former FDA commissioner, we face dark winter due to COVID-19 spikes. And this is the CEO of St. Francis Health System in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It says He warns of a very, very dark winter for COVID-19 and Oklahoma. And it goes on and on. It's like they're in lockstep saying this.
Hmm.
And it's like you said, it's almost as if they have to tell us what's coming. And it truly has me disturbed.
Hmm. Yeah, I need somebody to research the scriptural part of that. There's got to be a spirit behind that where there's, almost like on a Job type of thing where Satan goes, "Hey, let me attack Job. Let me do these things to him." He had to get permission. It just seems to be on that order is that Satan has to announce the evil plans he has against America because America clearly is the chosen country. It was conceived in the heart of God, I believe. It was brought up through here, through the pilgrims, through belief in God, through faith in the Bible. They were a pious people, and they so many things from the Magna Carta said they established this land for the propagation of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and every university was founded on that principle too as well. So this is the country that God used to spread the gospel around the world. So I believe there, and somebody who say this facetious to say that or whatever, but I'm saying it is true. His hand has been on this country from the very foundation of it. And people say, well, look at your dollar bill, you got Illuminati here and there. Those are extraneous things, and just man didn't go away, and man's sin didn't go away, and man's plans to get enriching himself didn't go away, but God's plan didn't go away either. So somewhere along the line, what was meant for bad, God's going to turn around for good, and that's almost like a gospel thing there, and that's one of the things, Kevin, that we have to hang on to.
Exactly. And I did a program I do a weekly message on my Facebook page, and I did one a couple weeks ago, and that's what I said. After just looking at the reactions of people when it was, when they announced Joe Biden was the AP projection for president, I see people dancing out in the streets on the one side. I saw the other side look like heaven was bankrupt, but,
Oh.
I said this that, God is still in control. And, we need to get our eyes on Jesus Christ because the thing about this, Daniel, is, and this is another thing that disturbs me about all this, it's like both sides are looking for a man to fix everything, whether it be Biden, whether it be Trump. And that is the attitude that is setting the world up for the coming Antichrist. That they think a man can step on the scene and fix all the problems. He can heal our land. He can bring unity, as we've heard. No man is going to do that. I mean, our country's as divided as I've ever seen it in my lifetime. No man can step out unless he is empowered by Satan himself. And that's what the Antichrist is going to come and do. He's going to consolidate the world under one umbrella of unity.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kevin Shrum, we have questions coming in for you now. And by the way, for those of you just joining us, we have on our Newsmaker line tonight Kevin Shrum, applications developer. We've had him on before. He knows a bit about the Mandela effect too. Maybe we'll talk about that too in this conversation tonight. So one of our first questions for you, Kevin, you know how the show goes. From Azure, could the mark be tied into cell phone ownership?
Definitely, I mean, your cell phone is definitely a step in that direction. I mean, if you look at it, we've got it with us all the time. It seems to be always in our hand. We're always looking at it. We can do anything with it. I mean, we can buy, we can put our a grocery list and go pick it up. It's being used as I guess, a method of control. It can track us. Uh, as far as the COVID-19 now, we have the contact tracing that's on your phone. I mean, that's openly announced that they can trace you on your phone. It can listen to us. It can hear what we're saying. So it's definitely a step, but uh, it's going to have to come in sort of the mark will be sort of a transhumanism, a melding of machine and man, and as the final state. That phone you could say is going to be placed in you in at some point. Whether if you look at Elon Musk Neuralink, something
Mm-hmm.
like that, human 2.0 is that's the I guess the Luciferian agenda. We got two going on right now. We've got a consolidation of global power, global government, and then also, transhumanism. And that's where I believe that's where that would fall into that.
Mm-hmm. Um, Dale S says, Have you read the book End of the World by Nestle Kalergi?
No, I've never read that.
Okay. And this is from the Friends Radio Network. It says, Kevin, the greatest reset is biblical, sort of, the Jubilee. Have you thought of this?
Yeah, and every 50 years, in the Jewish economy, they would do and go do a reset. I mean, every man would be freed from his debts. It was 7 times 7. 7 years times 7 years for a period of 49 years, and then on that 50th year, everybody would be freed from their debts. And I guess that's one of the things that made their economy thrive. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as our economy, we would just keep piling up debts until suddenly the world has to go to war to erase those debts. That's sort of how we handle it, and we've seen it handled in our lifetime. But yeah, the Jubilee erase debts, and that would be sort of the idea presented that
Mm-hmm.
hey, and you see that in the media, they're presenting that idea in the media today. Hey, give up all your possessions. When all the economies of the world collapse, they'll just ask you to give up all your possessions, and we'll provide you with a universal basic income. We'll provide you with somewhere to live. You've just got to give up all your possessions and sort of go into a communist state.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does seem the devil always has a copy, and so that leads us back to Biden, of course. And they're talking about college debt forgiveness. And look, man, I don't think in any way, shape, or form should those stupid kids be granted forgiveness for debts that they incurred by their own will and then foisted on somebody else. Look, they're down in there. They're getting degrees in women's studies, in cloud studies. White people are evil studies. There's no jobs for that. And they don't think about that. They get these degrees, a liberal arts. Who knows what the hell that is? What's a liberal art? I don't even know. Is that painting on the sidewalk? Is that playing hopscotch? I don't know. What is that? Is that a etch-a-sketch? They got these nasty, stupid degrees, and they want somebody else to pay for it because they can't get jobs. Let me tell you something. Even when their college is paid for, they still won't be able to get a job because those degrees suck. They don't make any sense whatsoever. But in their mind, they think they're going to change the world through women's studies or whatever the hell that even means. I don't know. Just looking at women all day long. I mean, I don't know what kind of girl's going to do that. Well, I do. Sounds like a porn channel over there, but they're the ones that made that decision. They need to buck up and pay it they self.
Right. And that goes back to, the promise to raise the minimum wage to what, $15 an hour. And that is going to, that sounds good on the surface, but they are going to, especially like the restaurants, they're already, experimenting with the kiosk where you just go order and nobody be there to take your order. They've experimented with robotics, doing the cooking. So, that's what it's going to lead to. These companies are just going to replace the people with automation. So they're going to end up with no jobs at all. And once again, it's going to fall back to that. And I keep hammering this over and over, but this universal basic income is you're going to see that more and more in the coming months and years, that's what's going to be pushed. That because even going back to artificial intelligence, they're already projecting that artificial intelligence may wipe out 40% of the jobs in the next 10 years. So if it does that, how are people going to survive? The government is going to have to provide for them.
Mm-hmm. All right. Australian Ben says, Kevin, is transhumanism the goal of atheists only, or will Christians also call for it?
Well, of course, it falls right in with atheism and the fact that the lie that Satan gave to Adam and Eve in the garden, that they should be as gods. You should be as gods, and that's what transhuman is. Men are reaching for godhood, and there probably may be some types of religious sects that would go for that as well, because we see some of the false religions promote that, hey, you can become a god, you can go live on a planet, and you can have your own planet and produce spirit babies when you
Wow.
die, if you attain a certain amount of works
Mm-hmm.
while you live here on this
That
earth.
sounds like a Mormon.
That's it.
You know how I know that? Because I was approached by a Mormon one time. A couple of Mormons, they attacked me one day. They say, "Hey, brother," and "Oh, you want to follow us?" And I go, "What I want to follow you for?" They go, because we're one of the 144,000. I go, "Yar." I said, wow, that's interesting. I said, what do you get for that? And he said, well, when we die, then we get our own planet, and then but we need subjects, and so we want you to be a subject. And I said, not only no, am I not going to be your subject? Get the hell out of here, okay? Because I don't know what kind of brain thing you got going on, but man, fix that. Um,
Well, it's the satanic lie, and it's the same, whether on every level, whether it's transhumanism, Mormonism, or any other false religion. That man, it's even in evolution, that man will someday will go past where we're at now and go into godhood. So it's the same lie that Satan, gave to our parents 6,000 years ago, and he's still using it today.
Okay, look, you mentioned the cell phone. It was said the other day that there's more technology in a cell phone than the entire Earth in 1965. Um, did man come up with everything that cell phone does, or is there somebody else that's downloading information to humans?
I think there's an evil agenda, a satanic agenda, if you will, Luciferian, whatever you want to call it, that does download things to people. And speaking of AI, uh, I guess you could say the idea of artificial intelligence goes always all the way back to ancient Greece, and even before, and then even after that, I look back, the comic writers in the 1960s were writing about artificial intelligence. So I guess it's a steady stream. It's a common stream that's coming from these evil entities, that is coming to people that give themselves over to listen to them.
Give theirself over. That's an interesting way you put that.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, that is the thing that, with God, He'll let you go on and and in one place over in Romans says He gave them up. There's one thing about,
Hmm.
you and I may commit a sin, and, we know it's wrong. Our conscience will condemn us.
Hmm.
There's a point where man keeps going on and doing the same thing, and he just keeps diving deeper and deeper into sin. And I believe there's a point where God takes His hand off, and He lets those evil spirits come in, and that's when men do unthinkable things. That we can't even wrap our minds around some of the evil that goes on in this world. I believe it's when men give themselves up to these spiritual entities.
Hmm. What is what do children have to do with all this?
Well, the book of Proverbs, chapter 6 says, and I'm glad you brought that up. He says, six things God hates. And on that list, it says, hands that shed innocent blood. And there's forever been a tie in with innocent blood. And I guess you could say it sort of gives the Satanist power. I mean, if you look, they're always into sacrifice.
Hmm.
They get a power out of the blood, and that even goes all the way back to the tales of the vampires that they got power from drinking blood. And it's interesting that the drinking of blood was prohibited. It was prohibited when Noah got off the ark. Now I don't know if there's some that say that's how the Nephilim actually, gain. That's how they fell. They came and drank blood, and that's what sort of gave birth to the vampire mythos. Was those fallen angels came and drank human blood and were able to mate with women, because as soon as Noah got off the ark, God prohibited the drinking of blood, and it was prohibited all through the law that God gave to Moses, and then in the New Testament as well. When they were giving out the rules for the early church, there was a it was prohibited that people drink blood. So there's some kind of power. The book of Leviticus says the life of the flesh is in the blood. There's something very powerful about blood, and the Satanists and the Luciferians know this, and I believe that's how they draw a lot of their power, by
Hmm.
shedding innocent blood.
Hmm. All right. Question says, Kevin, what are the odds Mark Zuckerberg has a secret facility creating clones of himself by artificial intelligence?
Well, he definitely has the money to do that,
He's one freaky
and
looking dude, man. Hey, by the way, there's some pictures of him out there where his leg is like in some unnatural position. It's like, man, this dude is he's not even human. But anyway, go ahead. Besides that, he looks like a wax dummy. Anyway, stupid as hell. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not beyond the realm of possibility. I mean, I don't believe we can fully comprehend what technology is out there. I mean, you look, when were they cloning Dolly the sheep? That's been what, mid '90s. So you got to think we're so far past that now that, I believe definitely they have the power to clone people at this point.
Revelation says that they gave power to the beast, and then they worshiped the beast and said, "Who is like unto the beast?" And the beast, of course, spoke great blasphemies. Power is given unto him, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and overcome them, all kindreds, tongues, and nations. It sounds like there's a central figure here, but it's not necessarily human. Are we going to suggest here in the program that it's possibly the power of artificial intelligence that begins to become self-aware and speaks great things, which to the human sounds, oh, this is the answer to this problem. This is the answers to COVID-19. This is the answer to famine. This artificial intelligence, which would be rolled out worldwide, as you suggested, is it possible it's an AI situation rather than, say, a Mark Zuckerberg type freako, or something like, or is George Soros coming back from the dead?
Yeah, I mean, it's very well possible. I want to read that verse that you quoted there, because there's something particular here that I didn't notice it for years, and one day I was reading it, I come across this, that uh, verse 15 of Revelation 13. It could be a combination of both. It could be a man and an artificial intelligence, and it says, because it says here, and he had power. This is speaking of the false prophet. He had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak. So the image, it said, could speak, and cause that with many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So it looks like it's saying that the image would cause the people to be killed. So that definitely could be an artificial intelligence situation right there.
Okay. All right. More questions coming in. In your opinion, will the Antichrist be a Gentile or Jewish 12 tribe bloodline?
Yeah, there are. That one is heavily debated, and I really don't know where I come down on that one. There are some verses that point to that he will be a Gentile, and there are other verses that could be interpreted to say that he is the Jew. And there's one particular I guess tribe that it seemed he might come from, as when the in Revelation chapter 7, when it speaks of the tribes that are sealed going through the tribulation, the tribe of Dan particularly, it does not mention them being sealed, and that actual tribe is the one that gave birth to idol worship in ancient Israel. So it could very well be that one of the tribe of Dan could be come out and be the Antichrist. Let me read you one more verse there. This verse always sticks out to me as well, as speaking of that. As Jacob there came and blessed and prophesied over the 12 tribes over here in the book of Genesis, and it talking about Dan. This was it says, verse 17 of Genesis 49, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. So it describes Dan as being a serpent and an adder. So very well that Antichrist could come out of the seed of the tribe of Dan.
Okay. Additional folks joining us in the live chat. I always want to shout out to everyone who's logging in. Perry and Emma Cortis, welcome to the program. Space Cow, Chuck Bam, Rob T, Raul Sanchez, MDS 1818, Pony Red Rose 2000, Lorna Thompson, and Blue Girl 65. All welcome to the S Television broadcast in the live chat. So, Kevin, it sounds like there's definitely technology coming through that's going to be a part of this. And like you said, everyone is looking at their cell phones, and there seems to be technology. And of course, it's come out that whether you have your phone on or off, they're still tracking you. They've proved that many times on that. That's the easy stuff there. But this nationwide, these stupid, ignorant Gestapo-type governors are rolling out quarantines against COVID-19. and then the governor of Oregon said, "Hey, if your neighbor was stealing something, you would report them. If they were molesting a kid, you'd report them. So if they're having Thanksgiving, it's the same thing. Okay, you were trying to save lives here. We're trying to save some lives. Report your neighbor, Kevin. Will you do it for your children? Will you do it for your children?" And then but here's the deal. I think they're doing it anyway, man. Are they looking to see if we're celebrating Thanksgiving on our smartphones or smart TVs? Are they already looking?
Could already be. I mean, the technology is there. The debate is, whether you'll be searching, you may speak of something, and then you'll all of a sudden you'll get an ad on Facebook for something you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about,
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the day, and it may be something you've never even spoke about, maybe one time, and it pops up. And I've looked at what the CEOs of Facebook said about that, and they were saying they weren't listening. They said that their algorithms were that good. The data they've already collected on you. I mean, and that's what Facebook is. It's just collecting data. That's
Mm-hmm.
what Google is. I mean, that's what the founders of Google said when they talked about its creation. They said we founded Google to feed the AI. I mean, in order to get AI to work, and I've played around with it some, setting up what they call a neural network.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the movie Terminator 2?
Yeah.
I guess that came back out in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned neural networks all the way back then, and neural network is simply it's an emulation of your brain's neurons, and that's what artificial intelligence. It's mimicking the human brain. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's how they set it up, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how they train it. They set up a neural network that sort of looks like the neurons in your brain, and they train it that way. They feed it information over and over and over, and that's what they said Google was doing. Every time you do a Google search, you're feeding into the AI. Anytime you post anything on Facebook, you're feeding into the AI. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, definitely there is that connection. But also, I talked to a law enforcement officer, and he mentioned they do use the technology to listen on your phone, the Facebooks
Mm-hmm.
and the Googles of the world. They do listen.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have protocols for that.
Hmm. Well, I see that there are these servers called Dominion servers, which obviously are part of a fraud. They said that the software built into them through Smartmatic. Basically, not only are they designed to change votes, but they're designed to eliminate the footprint of the change when it occurs. You're an application developer. Is that possible that there would be no digital footprint whatsoever?
Uh, it is possible. Now they would have to be really good to do that, and the fact that they went to Germany and seized those servers, that may have been part of how they were hiding their tracks, doing it offshore.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you would hope that as much as our government talked about the possibility of fraud in this election, that they somewhere somehow had somebody monitoring those servers
Mm-hmm.
and maybe could have pulled it out real time what they were doing. That would probably how you would have to get the footprint. If you could catch it exactly when they were doing it and pull
Mm-hmm.
it out, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. And that's I'm wondering if that's what Sidney Powell, that's what she's got the ace up her sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be a little coy about it, but they keep seeming to suggest that they got the goods.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, this massive shocker between Tucker Carlson and Sidney Powell. Are you familiar with that dust up? For those of you watching the program, if you're not aware, I guess Tucker was, I guess they were texting back and forth. I don't know if it was an actual call, but he was demanding proof, and or he wasn't going to let her on the show. And he was rude to her, and she said, she just texted back, "Don't you ever contact me again." That's Tucker Carlson, and most people thought that he was a good guy. But we've got to watch that, because that whole network there seems to be playing both sides of the fence there, probably to hang on to the viewers. But as long as Facebook and Fox, different places, keep throwing us little bones, I think they can keep us onto that information tether, and that's what they
Right.
want. So
Yeah.
they won't throw us off completely. They'll just keep giving us nuggets. I think that's how they're doing that. But so you're talking about feeding into Facebook and accumulating information. It was either Amazon or Google said that they've already got the technology to predict what you want before you think
Right.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have so much data collected on each and every individual, and it's stored. I mean, they have it stored there in tables and databases, and they run the AI through it. And yes, they can project what we're going to do. And I don't know if they didn't do this in the election. That they weren't getting everyone's. Everyone was posting stuff. Upcoming. The election. They could have run models on what was going to happen. 6 months in advance, and to have all this planned out. That's not beyond the realm of possibility. But
Hmm.
I want to say, as far as the media goes, it's almost like we've got a state-run media now that I've never seen a time when the media is so biased. I try to be, bipartisan. I don't
Hmm.
hate liberals. I don't,
Hmm.
I consider myself conservative, but I don't hate the other side. I mean,
Hmm.
my line of thinking, I don't see how they think that way, but we're all Americans, but it's like the elites of the world are pitting us, against each other, and then that is what I try not, you know, I have some friends that that I know they have a liberal way of thinking, but to me that's on them,
Hmm.
and I try not to let that affect our
Hmm.
relationship, and
Well, of
because
course.
that's what the elite of the world want. They want
Hmm.
to drive a a divide between our country.
Well, even though over 75 million people believe that this election was stolen, was hacked, was just by various methods, the people that believe that, the next day they got up and went to work. Now, if the
Right,
tables were turned, you would be seeing cities burned. Those cities are boarded up, including here in Indianapolis, boarded up because they anticipated riots in case the wrong person won. It wasn't because the right does that. And interestingly enough, there's a lot about being on the right. For instance, Jesus Christ is on the right hand of the Father. So the accuser of the brethren, he comes up on the left. Now, being the bride of Christ, we're going to be the right of Jesus. But the
right.
guy on the left, he's from the pit of hell. Just pointing out a little fun for you.
Yeah.
And a couple of people more logging in the live chat. Gil Max Volkin, welcome to the program. Here's a question. I'm not sure where it's going, but it says Kevin from Virginia, is AI involved in the removal of the Confederate flag? Now, this seems to be a loaded question that maybe we shouldn't be getting into. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, as far as I don't know how it would be involved in,
Hmm.
basically, that's a physical removal.
Hmm.
It's being removed from cemeteries, being removed from monuments.
Yeah.
I don't know how
I
AI
don't I
would be
don't know that
involved in
that's
that.
in the just of taking vaccines and uh, dark winter and fraud going on. I'm not sure how much we got to worry about that. Let's worry about this here.
Right.
It says from Carol, do you believe God has a plan for this country which would keep it out of the beast system? Some teach, would seem that we are heading to judgment deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, there is you've heard the people that, uh, and I'm going to not mention any names, but there's a theology called dominion theology that the Christians are going to rise up and take back
Dominion?
control for God because we're going to take it back from Satan. It's also called kingdom now.
Mm-hmm.
And some of their people were, they were prophesying that Trump was going to win again. It was going, his family was going to succeed him all the way down to Barron Trump was going to be president one
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, but the Bible clearly states that in the end there will be a one world government. So the United States has to fall by prophecy, and it
Mm-hmm.
will fall. Now, whether you and I get a reprieve, I know these things are coming, Dan. But do I want them to come in my lifetime? No, I don't.
You,
But I
well,
don't know if we're going to be spared from that.
remember the scripture says that he so who will let until he be taken out of the way.
Yeah.
Who is
Yeah.
that, and who's taking him out of the way?
Well, I'm gonna turn over and read that to you. That's in Second Thessalonians, chapter number 2, and this is my what I believe particularly it's saying. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day not shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." Now that's talking about the antichrist. And I'm going to skip down now to what you the one you quoted there. It says, "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work." So when Paul was writing this, he said, this mystery of iniquity that's going to bring about the Antichrist, it was already working in his day. And it was working through the Roman Empire at that time. But it says now, only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And that is a lowercase in the King James Bible and with the letter H. Now, some of the newer Bibles will put a capital H there, saying it's speaking about the Holy Spirit. And I do believe that it's in reference to the Holy Spirit, but I believe it's particularly lowercase here in the King James Version because I believe it's talking about the Holy Ghost that inhabits the believers. And I believe when it says he'll be taken out of the way, if you can imagine of all the church being taken out, that Holy Spirit influence would be taken out of the world, and then the man of sin. So it's almost like that. Yes, that the Christian influence on this world is the only thing holding back this evil at this time.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's hold it back some more, man. That's what I'm saying. Evil triumphs when good men do nothing. So hopefully, the good men and women of this country will continue to do good. A few minutes ago, Kevin Shrum, we were talking about artificial intelligence and perhaps and the election and the vote count. It was particularly with the Dominion server and that stupid smart tech or Smartmatic software that has been reversing. And clearly, the video proof is out there. There are actual videos showing on CNN and on Fox of Trump having a certain amount of ballots, Biden having a certain amount of ballots. Then you come back a second later after they rotate through some other states. Then all of a sudden there's 12,000 missing from Trump, 12,000, an exact 12,000 added to Biden. It's not increasing. Say maybe they miscounted the guy on the top somehow. Who knows how that happens? Miscounted, but no, it's a switch, an exact switch. But you said, getting back to Sidney Powell and several others who have been suggesting they have the smoking gun, they have the Kraken. And somebody asked me what the Kraken was. I answered that on Facebook. That is a beast from the 1981 movie Clash of the Titans, an all-time classic. Man, they made it, remade it, but never as good as the verse because you need that claymation monster coming up out of there. But so they say they got the Kraken, but Trump knew back in June or July, probably when he first got in office, he said, this is when he started saying it, I knew that he knew it more than this, that the mail-in ballots was going to defraud the election. It's going to cause massive fraud across the country and alter the election, and it was going to be stolen from the people, not from him. It was going to be stolen from the people. Knowing that, we just have been putting together the pieces from the AI technology that's in Google, Facebook, these algorithms they run, the artificial intelligence they run. There's also a military component. And I think it's been said through various people that the military has a copy of everything that's gone through on the net. They have a copy of it. They have Hillary's emails, and maybe it was Snowden. I don't know who said that, but somebody said they have it. Would they not have the information, and couldn't they do with a simple search of people's text, voice, or messages? Hey, because there was coordination, like Rudy Giuliani said. He said all of a sudden 5 states stopped counting at the same time. All of a sudden 5 states had a certain corral. They corralled people so they couldn't count the ballots. All of a sudden these 5 states started having hundreds of thousands of ballots come in and counted when the polling place was closed, when nobody was even there. They just came in. These same states. He said there's a coordinated effort. Couldn't that coordination be picked up by the military intelligence? Wouldn't they know? And then we talk about this server that they claim was taken from Germany. If they knew it was coming, isn't it plausible to think they would have some trap or trap door they could watch to see this?
Yeah, I'll give you a simplistic, I guess, example of something like would using my word. So if I'm writing a program, we will write out into logs, which will be a text file, everything that that program does in its execution. That way, if we're going back, if it's something we have a problem with the program, we can go back and read those logs and see what it
Hmm.
did step by step. It'll go second by second, everything that the program is doing in every state. So imagine, if you will, if I have a problem and my program, say it goes kaput in the middle of it. Well, I could actually take a snapshot of that log at the particular time and save it. But when I would restart that program, it would overwrite those logs. But I would still have that snapshot of what was happening at that particular time when that program went down. So, like I said, that's a simple explanation, and it's probably far more technical what they would have had to done, on those servers. But that would give you an idea of what
Hmm.
could have been done.
And this has really not been explained. I've not been even able to verify the fact that Trump's lawyers claim that the ballots. I don't know what was sent overseas. I don't know what was sent to Venezuela or Germany or Spain, but they say somehow foreigners were counting our votes. But I'm trying to put. You're a technical guy. You work in that field, applications development. How could our votes would they be transferred digitally and then counted and then sent back? Are they talking about the paper? Or are they talking about the information that's when it goes in the machine, it creates a digit or electronic file and send that, and they count them. Why couldn't that machine count right then? Is it plausible that that happened? That another country counted our votes and sent them
Yeah,
back?
and I had that understanding that was going on, and that was also part of my understanding of how they would have caught it at the minute they were uploading, and if they were to make the switch that at that time, that somehow uh, certain aspects of our government could have captured when they made the switch. So, say they send it overseas digitally to Germany, and then as soon as Germany sent it back, that's maybe when the switch occurred, and this could happen, in milliseconds, really.
Mm-hmm.
But our government could have had a snapshot of when they made the change. So
I just don't see why they would have to send it over there.
that's the part that sort of uh, I don't understand as well, why they
Well, I mean,
would send it.
if you're committing a crime, you could say, "Hey, they did it." I mean, it could be
Right,
plausible deniability.
true, and if you do a search on any of these, especially a Google search on anything doing with, the voter fraud, it comes back conspiracy theory. You're
Every
labeled a
time. Hmm.
conspiracy theorist. And Daniel, you and I, I've listened to you since you started. We're old hats at conspiracy theories. We know a good conspiracy theory when we see one,
Kind of
but
fun, ain't it?
yeah, but what I don't get, they're sort of new to the game, but what I don't get is, we spent 4 years looking at Russian collusion on the 2016 election, but now those same people don't want to take, 2 months and look at possible voter fraud in this election.
Hmm.
To me, that's hypocrisy, the height of hypocrisy right there.
Hmm. Well, I'm hoping that there are still white hats out there. Uh, I also believe in the providence is involved with our elected officials. It's clear that God sets up kings and He sets down kings. Did you hear me talk? I don't know if I was rant or what I did, how I said it in the last show, maybe 2 shows ago, talking about the comparison between Second Samuel, where King David was sick, and then Adonijah was getting ready.
Yes,
Did you hear me make that comparison?
right.
What?
Yeah, and something still could happen along those lines that, hey, everybody's looking at Adonai just fixing to be crowned, but at the last minute, David or David was a great type of Jesus Christ. He comes back and reverses the decision and puts Solomon in there.
Hmm. Hmm.
That very well could happen.
Hmm.
But once
Well,
again, we can't, and I cannot stress this enough. We cannot have our hopes tied to that,
hmm.
because we could very well be disappointed. And the way the world is, people already with the COVID lockdowns, people are already in a state of anxiety. Daniel, I've suffered anxiety all my life, and and prone for depression. I can't put my focus on that.
Hmm.
My focus has to be on Jesus Christ, no matter
Hmm.
who's in office,
Hmm.
that
Okay.
He's going to take care of us.
Okay. You remember about 10, I was thinking about 10, 15 years ago, you had something happen in your life, and I won't say it on the air, but something happened in your life. You was worried terrible about it. You prayed about it. You thought about it. I mean, it just all day long at your work, you were thinking about it. You remember that?
Yes.
You do?
Yep.
That's a trick question.
Well, actually, it was about. I'll tell you the, and I'm going
Okay.
to give you
Well,
the
well,
story.
wait a minute. Hold on. Maybe I need to go back further. It was about 25 years ago.
Actually, it was 8 years,
Okay.
but
Okay. But
I'm,
another event. It was 25 years ago, and you were in another state. Um,
no, it wasn't that. That wasn't in that. Sorry, can't convince me of that.
okay.
I,
Oh,
but
you took my point away. Okay, you took my point. Let me go. I'm going to have to finish it now because you took my spotlight, man.
okay.
Because you were supposed to say what event you talking about, and I would say, there you go. And the lesson is that what we were concerned about 25 years ago, we lost sleep
Yeah.
over. Here we are having a nice chat. So people need to think about whatever they're going through now, and whatever consternation and upsetness and anxiety, that it's going to happen every day if you let it. And we got
Right.
to work away from that because you can't. There's certain things you can't change. And isn't that what anxiety is? When something is you're trying to change something that you can't.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I want to. It's a great segue and something I wanted to share with your listeners tonight. In 2012, I probably suffered just the greatest depression of my life. I didn't see a reason to even get up in the mornings, and had some things going on with the family and personally, and I went to the doctor about it.
Okay.
And this is what she asked me now. I've talked about being a long time conspiracy theorist. She said, "Well, what do you do when you get up in the mornings?" I said, "Well, I'll read my Bible and then I'll get on and, I'll read all the news. I'll go to this conspiracy site. I'll go to this conspiracy site. I may read, an overseas newspaper." And she looked at me, she says, "No wonder you're depressed. That's all you focus on is the bad things going on in the world." And I found, I had to step away from it for a while. I had to just, say, hey, because if all we do is concentrate on the bad, it is going to program in a, it's going to have a physical effect. It's going to manifest physically in our lives. We're going, it's going to affect the hormones our body produces. Anxiety will make you produce, greater amounts of stress hormones, and it just compounds on upon each other once you get in that state. So, if anything I share with your listeners tonight, even though we may go through this dark winter. It's worrying me that they keep projecting this, but we have to keep positive. We have to keep our focus on the Lord and keep our focus, our minds in the Scripture. And the Scripture says that we need to think upon the good things and not always be dwelling on the bad.
Hmm. All right. Well, that's good. That's a good thing right there. And laughter does good like a medicine too. So that's why I try to put some humor in it when I'm ever doing a show because some of these subjects are pretty heavy. Let me ask the people in the live chat watching. I was really doing this last week. I think I was asking questions every other minute. How many think that there is a smoking gun on this election? That there is, in fact, a kraken that has been released that will lay bare the whole fraud. If anybody thinks they say that, just put a yep or no in the live chat. Let's just see what the people out there think. I'm still kind of in the middle of that because, again, I don't know what information will be being shipped overseas and then coming back. I don't know how that even be a thing. But, I hope that military intelligence is involved because Trump doesn't control the media. He doesn't control the education. He doesn't control television, any of it, but he does control the military. Could he
Yeah.
not have ordered them to track anomalies changing votes as commander in chief?
I mean, I hope so. Everything, everybody talks about how intelligent Donald Trump, he playing the 4D chess board. I would hope if all that is true that he would have had military sitting there waiting, ready, like I said, to take a snapshot if something like that was going down. And if not, I would have to question, what everyone is saying about him being so brilliant if
Mm-hmm.
he didn't have something like that going in.
Yeah. Historically, everything he said has been proven correct. I mean, I don't say that because I like him. I'm just stating the fact. and somebody with an independent thinking person would have to come to that same conclusion. Remember the very early days, he said they wiretapped me. And he was ridiculed. I think it was one of the first things that he said. People said, "That's ridiculous. You're a conspiracy theorist nutbag. You know, you don't even deserve the president for saying that." Every single thing that he has said has been proven right, one way or another. But here's the from the live chat. The question was: is there a Kraken? Is Trump playing 4D chess? Was there a plan in place, knowing there was going to be a massive nationwide fraud? Space Cow says yes. Rosa says yes. Southern Boy, yep. You would like Southern Boy, wouldn't you? Robert Griffin, yep. Joey Splatz, yes. He said the proof is there. Max Vogan, yes. Got a all caps yes from Smoke C. Gladys says yes. Mickey V says yes. A lot of positivity here now. A lot of people believing. Pony Red Rose 2000, yes. Azure says I'm undecided. Jade says yep. Me no. Now, I can't tell if she's taking both sides on that one there. Australian Biz says yes. In fact, I texted him. I said, "Hey man, who's going to win the election?" And he said Donald Trump 289. And so hey, Jim Shook says yepers. Gil says no. Too many weirdos out there. And so looks like the yays have it. TL Scott says yes, 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 and all Artistic Wall Design says I hope so. And Archie King says yes. So by far, people are believing that there was a checkmate plan in place, Kevin.
Yeah, but really, I mean, realistically, let's say this thing gets overturned in the courts. Say it goes to the Supreme Court. They overturn this thing. We're still could be in for a dark winter, because can you imagine the chaos that's going to happen in major cities if this thing gets overturned at this point? So, I mean, in reality, we got some rough waters to go either way this turns out.
Well, I'm going to give you a quote from Tombstone, my favorite movie. It's the movie that caused me to grow this fabulous mustache right here, wide erp. Okay, when
is that the original or the remake?
The one with Kurt Russell.
Okay, well, yeah, the original was called Shootout at OK
No,
Corral.
I like that Kurt. I like Doc Holliday and them on Kurt Russell. But anyway, so his son was saying, Wyatt Earp was saying, "Man, we just need to leave things alone. Let the evil in the town go. Sure, you got the cowboys who's just wearing the red sashes. These are anarchists. Okay, that was the antifa of Tombstone. Okay, that was the antifa." He said, "Just leave them alone. Leave them alone." And his little brother says, "Wyatt, what do you mean? There ain't no bargaining with bugs." And that's what we have. We have bugs all in this society. And Kevin, I say, let the chips fall. I want the truth and the rightful man put into that office that was voted in. And if there's anarchy and riots, so be it. We'll deal with it. Because I got a feeling that time around, it ain't going to be just the police going down there and settling the matter. It's going to be some other folks.
Yeah, and some have suggested that's why Trump is calling back the military, that, in case this thing does go down, he's going to put us under martial law and clean everything up. So very well, then he may put the people in Gitmo. He may finally, keep that promise that he made there.
So I just don't do well with threats. The threat, of course, was, and they even said it. Cruella Harris said that there was still, if Donald Trump gets us, the riots will continue. I don't do well with threats, So that don't play with me. You know what I'm saying? Right. I said bring it on. All right, nothing more. Wow, I missed a whole lot of questions because I didn't scroll this thing. All right, let's go with this one here. Peter from Australia said, "Did you hear Steve Blazenick say that there was a sting operation and that the ballots were marked with a QFS blockchain encryption code that can easily be traced?"
Yeah, I did hear that, but I've heard Steve Pachinik said that. I've heard some things that went against that as well. So you would think if it would be that simple that that would have already came out.
I did look into that, and from my worldview, it's a hoax. Okay, it's right. Giving hope, and I try not to give into the, there are people that are given hope, and things like this does give hope, but I think it's unqualified because for one, The federal government doesn't print those ballots. The individual states do.
Right.
And the Department of Homeland Security and CISA, SCISA, on their website, they knew about these rumors and they said, we have nothing to do with it. There are no Q codes on any of this. They've already denied it. And so, well, as much as we'd like it to be true, we can't let the imaginations grow wild and be crazy like the left. And that's why I'm not sure about the server. Sidney Powell says she thinks the good guys got the server, but she's not sure. So that tells me nobody got the server. I mean, hey,
Right.
nobody got. Where's Hillary's server? Where's Hunter Biden's laptop? Where's Wiener's laptop? If they can't we can't find out what's in those laptops. We sure as hell ain't going to find out what's in these servers. I mean, these people are nuts. They're un-American, man. You just hope that these three-letter agencies would be for America, but apparently not.
Well, I mean, in November, Daniel, and you look at still the questions still surrounding the assassination of JFK. All this time, nobody still knows the truth on that. And will we ever know the truth on this? We may not.
They keep sealing it up for another 25 years. And by the way, I'm not saying why I was on the grassy knoll. I was on vacation. I don't know. That's I can't remember. I don't remember where I was that day. All right. What about this here? Ray Kurzweil says, or Australian Ben says, Ray Kurzweil proclaimed in his book, "The Age of the Spiritual Machines," that he is on a fast track to symbiosis. Can you speak about that, Kevin?
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil says that his prediction, I believe it was 2050 on singularity, which is when AI would become sentient, in that it would become alive and would be able, capable of independent thought. And he since the last I heard it moved that up to 2030. And if you look at that 2030 date, there's a lot of things point the 2030 agendas that the UN has rolled out. A lot of things pointed to 2030. So this decade between 2020 and 2030 is going to be very interesting. And with all this talk about a great reset, I believe this decade is going to be, I guess, probably one definitely for the history books.
Yeah, and you've made it clear, of course, that no one is to put their faith in man, and nobody's saying on this program that we are doing such a thing. But I will quote one of the most brilliant forefathers of this country, Benjamin Franklin, who said, "The older I get, the more I am convinced God rules in the affairs of men." He clearly said that he sets up kings and sets down kings. So that means he uses humans in all their frailty and to carry out his good work and his desire upon the earth. So that would by necessity mean that he uses imperfect people to do his perfect work. So, who that is, that means somebody is going to be used by God, and that's what we're saying here.
Yeah, and the book of Proverbs says, as the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So no matter who's in office in January, God is still going to be in control, and that man is not going to do anything that God is not going to allow him to do. Whether it be judgment upon America for the countless lives that have been slaughtered in the womb, or is it going to be, are we going to hold this thing off for 4 more years? Or are we going to hold the globalist Luciferian agenda off for 4 more years? We still don't know, but whatever it is, it does lie in God's hands.
Okay, very good. All right, this is from MDS 1818. It says Zero Hedge claims to throw out court case. Just posted. What's your take? I don't not. That was incomplete sentence there. I don't even know where it's going. Is there a court case that was thrown out just recently?
I think I heard there was one through in Arizona. The one in Maricopa County, I think.
I do know that there's been several decertifications of winners or
the
ballots.
one in Wayne County, that was particularly interesting the other night. They said the two refused to certify, the two Republicans, and then all of a sudden they made a shift and said, then they certified it. Then they came back and said they were bullied into certified it and rescinded that. So I don't think Wayne County is still settled at this point in Michigan.
Yeah, I did see that woman talk about it, man. She was threatened. Her kids was threatened. She was doxxed. I mean, you only do that if you're hiding something.
Right.
That's all that
Yeah,
is.
that's the thing. There's so many irregularities around this election that if anybody that is unbiased should want a investigation of what went on. I mean, how many affidavits did Giuliani present the other day at the conference, at the news conference he had? I mean, that's alone enough to have an independent investigation. But is there such a thing as independent investigation in the swamp? Are there still too many swamp creatures up there that aren't going to allow it?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of swamp creatures still in there, and a bunch of rhinos too going on.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you saw. I guess Mitt Romney came out against the investigations as well. He said it was just time for him to concede.
Man,
So
you put steel plugs in the side of Romney's neck, and that's Frankenstein right there. Big square head that dude's got. Big, lanky, square looking dude. By the way, in our live chat, joining us, Overbuilt Automotive, Gladys Kravitz, and Cheryl Harper all joined in the live chat. Now, I know China's behind this. They are chomping at the bit to get old China Joe back in there so they can make some deals and take over America.
yeah, I mean China. I mean all the way back to the Clintons.
Ching
With them
Chong
selling.
Pow and the bunch of dog eaters over there. That's what messing me up.
Well, particularly if you watch the election results that night, you saw the Chinese yuan. When we thought the projection, Trump was winning. I mean, that told the tale. Their currency was bottoming out at that time, but then all of a sudden, when Biden was projected the winner, it came back up, and they were celebrating in the streets over there. That tells the tale
Hmm.
that the if the Chinese interests want Biden in there, that's
Hmm.
that's got to tell you
Yeah,
something about.
Iran wants him in there too. So
Yeah.
Biden can help him get a nuke. He's a freak, man. Can you imagine people waking up and saying, "Man, I want to go. I want to go vote for that guy that can't put a sentence together." I don't get it. Um, have you, Space Cow says, "How long? How much time do we got back? How much time do we got left?"
Well, I said the 2030 date, as far as UN agendas, and that has been thrown out a lot. But for me to say we've got 10 years left, I can't say that, but I can say there is a quickening going on. And it seems, there's been so much invested in this COVID pandemic, in the election. It's almost like, we are in the end game right now.
Hmm.
I've said that, to some people recently. It's like everything's accelerated. There's a definite push for globalism right now. And with the artificial intelligence running behind the scenes, it's growing every day. There's got to be a collision point in which we just can't go on any further, and God has to step in.
Hmm. Gord from Canada.
And I'll say this, Jesus Christ said over there in Matthew 24, he says, if the days were not shortened, there would no flesh be saved. In other words, if God didn't step in, mankind would destroy itself. And or Satan would, Satan, of course, would help him out with the deal. But,
Hmm.
God is going to have to step in at some point and stop this thing.
From Canada, somebody said Dark Winter also was a military exercise in 2001. It
Yeah.
was around a deadly bioterrorist and smallpox attack on the USA. So right there,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to the first hour when I said it seems to me that the evil forces are compelled by some celestial agreement. They have to announce their evil plans before they carry them out. Um, all right. So Azur says, Kevin, do you feel biblical prophecy has been fulfilled to this day short of the second coming? Has most of it been fulfilled?
Um, no, I mean, there's still a lot to be fulfilled. Is what Jesus Christ said. He said, in the last days we'd have natural disasters. They'd be pestilence and plagues. He talked about nation rising against nation. But when he said that, though, he said this is the beginning of sorrows. So we're just in the opening ceremonies, if you will. What we see going on, it's going to get much, much worse. So
Hmm.
there is still a lot to be left on the table.
Much worse. You're a cheery fellow, ain't you?
Just really, I mean, that is what the Bible says.
Okay.
The Bible
Okay.
says that evil men and seducers will wax worse and worse. And he talks about the conditions of the world will just deteriorate.
Yeah, well, I'd say that kind of where we're at. Uh, but Yahweh first says, Kevin, does CERN have anything to do with this AI control world?
Um, I'm sure AI plays, probably plays prominent in the control of the Hadron Collider. But from what I see, is CERN. I've looked at it. It looks like they're trying to find what they call the God particle.
Mm-hmm.
That leftover particle from the, what caused the Big Bang. Is what they say they're looking for. Other
Mm-hmm.
people say, they're trying to look into other dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
into the quantum realm. And we've had so much of that put forth in the media in the last few years, about there being a quantum realm and, microverse and multiverses. So, uh, I would not, I don't know if that's, the relation is maybe not, CERN to AI, but no doubt AI has a lot to do with the operation of CERN.
Mm. Okay. Peter from Australia says, do you think it's fair of Tucker Carlson to request more proof from Sidney Powell before having her on? Wouldn't that be like placing all her cards on the table?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought that's what it was, and I was definitely disappointed when Tucker done that, and that made me question what team he was on, or if somebody had some dirt on him somewhere, or maybe his job was threatened. I don't know, but it would seem like even if his job was threatened, he could go to another network
Mm-hmm.
and start all over.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen the media come out and it's like they've overplayed their hand. They've shown a great bias against Donald Trump during these days. So, it's like I said before, it's almost like we have a state-run media that, they're all reading off the same script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all saying now, time for healing. Okay, the great healing. Well, healing does not mean that. It means comply. It means
Right.
compliance. It means obey. And now they're even talking about re-education camps. So what do you know?
Yep. And that's been in the conspiracy circles for years, the FEMA camps where they would take us and re-educate us. So the things that have been talked about in conspiracy circles for 20, 15, 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be proven out that there was something to these
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you are correct. Dale says, Kevin, are you familiar with the Kim Clement prophecies?
Yeah, and Kim Clement was part. I think he has some of that dominion theology that I spoke about. That
Mm-hmm.
the church is going to turn around and kick Satan out. But prophecy doesn't bear that out. And that's the problem. There's been a lot of these prophetic voices come out and say that Trump was going to get reelected and be in there. And if he's not inaugurated in January, they're going to have a lot of egg on their face. And
Mm-hmm.
I heard a man the other day. He said it was a preacher. He was a pastor here in Tennessee. He come out Middle Tennessee. He come out and said on a video on YouTube. He said 110% Donald Trump is going to serve 4 more years. But he said he had a dream about it. These people are saying that God told them stuff, and it is definitely going to put a black mark on these men's ministries. If Donald Trump isn't inaugurated in
Mm.
January,
Do you know the
because
name of that?
I don't
Do you remember the
do
name of
what.
that preacher or whoever?
Yeah, Greg Locke from Murfreesboro, right? He's probably about an hour away from me.
Yeah. Now he's not the only one saying that.
Oh yeah, there's countless others that have said, Trump is going to be back in there,
Mm-hmm.
and that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
It says because they're saying God came and told them, whether in a dream or He came and audibly spoke to them.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me wonder what voices are they really listening to.
Yeah.
I
Unfortunately, we had
say God came and told me something.
mhm. We had a man by the name of Mark Taylor. I'm sure you've heard of
Yes.
him on the show back. I think it may have been before the 2016 election. And of course, you know, he was roundly lauded for his prophecies. And my wife and I was watching him later, and then it's kind of like a country singer when they make a hit song, and then the next song they make, they wrote as fast as they could to get another one, and it sucks. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like, man,
Yeah.
you didn't hit it, and you could just tell when they're just pushing something out because they have to fill a thing. Well, that's kind of where he went. And I like the man, and I don't want to down him, but he started making these rhyme songs like they were prophecy and rhymes, and it was the
Yeah.
stupidest things I ever heard. And so I don't know if I think he was one that's saying that he's going to get another 4 years, but it seems to me he may have got a message in the beginning, but you got to make sure what you get next is the real thing, and you're not just trying to get some clicks on a website somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's very you
You
got to
know,
watch credibility's on the line doing that.
it's almost like ministries have become celebrities. It's how they can get more clicks, and grow their ministry. And like I said, I've got a little, I do a little show on Facebook. I don't have much, but I just want to present the scriptures and what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say God came and told me something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of it, I believe people just do it for sensationalism and want to get those clicks. I mean, I've seen pastors. I've looked up, some of course, before YouTube censorship, I saw some of the net income some of these pastors were making on YouTube, and it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to question, what are they being driven by? Is it money, or is it truly ministry
Mm-hmm.
for the people?
Mm-hmm. I had a previous guest on this show tell me off the air. He said uh, I could write a book, and if it was about doom and gloom, I would sell way more than if I said something happy. But we're
Right.
not. You don't have any books to sell, and so we're not talking about that. But it is you have to kind of watch that a little bit there. Like I
Yeah,
said,
me and a friend of mine, Chris Taylor from Don't Let Them Burn, we're collaborating on a book on AI. I don't know if I'm kind of the one dragging that down, staying busy all the time. But if we ever get that done, and that there's a guest recommendation, Chris Taylor. He's definitely an expert in things on
mm-hmm.
AI and
Mm-hmm.
things in the media.
All right, we'll send me a link on there.
Okay.
Here's another question. Smoke C says, "What happens to the presidency if the president elect? What happens to the presidency if the president elect does before he is sworn into office?
Dies, I guess.
Dies, maybe? I don't know. I don't know, but that Skeletor looking freak, man, he looks like the crypt keeper. He just turns 78. I mean, he's the oldest white cracker ever. I mean, what happened to the party of diversity, man? That ain't no diversity unless you talk about hair plugs being diverse.
Yep, and you got to think though, there was such a strong showing by Bernie at the first, and it's like everybody was behind him, and then all of a sudden, the party seemed to pull the plug on Bernie,
Mm-hmm.
so and stick Biden in there. It was like it was almost a setup from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we got that stupid Cruella. Somehow got back in. Of course, I put on my Facebook. You may have seen it. She's a super spreader.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it right there. Okay, how much has Freemasonry penetrated the absolute top of American elections? A whole lot of penetrating going on.
Yeah, I mean, you go all the way back to George Bush and his, the father George Bush and his speech about the 1,000 points of light.
Mm-hmm.
That was directly came out of Masonry, and of course his son, George Bush Jr. There, he was involved in the Skull and Bones Society there at Yale. So there's always been that sort of undertone of Masonic, leadership in this country. So, you know, I actually know a high level Mason, and he's told me some things, about the country, and he actually told me Biden would be elected. Now, how the man know that, I don't know, but if he still has some connections, but that's another thing. I did a huge study on the Masonic order one time, and I had to. That's another thing. I had to pull out of that thing. It was so dark, the things I was looking at. It was like an oppression came over my life. I finally had to. That's one of those things I had to turn off.
Mm. Well, I meant, would it do us any good to turn it off right now?
Yeah. I don't know. As far as the Masonic levels on up into what the Illuminati, those that are said to control the world behind the scenes. I do believe there is a group, that, has a great wealth, Soros and others that, they know the keys to turn, to make things happen. The money is what drives things. Do they just put out political puppets for us? And they do their bidding. It seems the way things have worked
Mm-hmm.
down through the years. And I think that's what a lot of people liked about Donald Trump. That he said he was going to go drain the swamp. He was going to change things. I mean, that's how he rode into office on 2016. He was going to shake things up for so long. It's like we didn't have a choice in the election. It was,
Mm-hmm.
do we want this globalist or that
Mm-hmm.
globalist?
All
And
right.
Donald Trump seemed to change those things.
Speaking to the average American, 'cause watching what's going on would, as we said earlier, probably bring a lot of anxiety, and the anxiety comes on not being able to change what's happening around us, foreseeing or speculating or imagining weird stuff that's creepy as hell coming our way. Um, should one sort of should those folks sort of disconnect from the news feeds, or should we stay in tune with it to see what's happening? Where do we draw the line on that? How much information should we internalize that's coming at us?
Well, I would recommend this. I mean, if you're getting to the point, where anxiety is taking over, I would recommend just taking a fast from it. Just saying, hey, I'm putting my phone aside. I'm putting Facebook away. I'm putting social media. I'm putting, Fox News off, CNN, whatever. I'm going to take a certain amount of time and I'm going to devote myself to prayer and fasting. And I guarantee you, your outlook will change. Your attitude will change. It will lift you up. I mean, I'm sure some of your listeners need to do that. I've had to do that in my life personally, and, put a limit on to what I'm studying, what I'm looking at, and put my concentration more on the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Uh, you certainly can't go wrong with that.
Right.
Well, Kevin Shrum, we're kind of right at the end of the broadcast. Any final things you want to say that we didn't get to, or you felt was on your anything laid on your heart you thought you might talk about?
Yeah, I just I seem like we've been on this theme. There's a song goes over on my mind. I think I shared with you on one of our first broadcasts. We have chickens and ducks and things of that nature, and we
Mm-hmm.
we run a little animal rescue here.
Oh.
Me and my wife have never went by a stray dog or cat, that needed help we didn't pick up. But you know, there's a song. It's called "Turn Your Eyes on Jesus," and it says, "The things of this earth will go strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace." And it was that song, and when I did a program on that a couple of weeks ago on my Facebook, and that song had turned over and over in my mind. And the night before that I was going to do that program on the radio, I do sort of a simulcast on a local radio station,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
Live. I'd walked out on the porch late at night, and I keep a radio turned on in my barn to keep it keeps the critters away,
Mm-hmm.
both
Wow.
real critters and spiritual critters, because I play Christian music, and it'll play that particular station will play readings of the Bible during the night. And the moment I walked out on that porch, it was real quiet outside. There's usually a lot of wind blowing around my house, but that night there wasn't. And the song that was playing was "Turn Your Eyes on Jesus." And I would just leave your listeners with that.
Mm.
You have to turn away from this world. Do that. Put your eyes on Jesus.
Mm.
And there it is. There's
Was,
this.
was that it? Let me see.
That's it. Are you in trouble?
Well, I'll tell you
That's how.
what.
That's,
If well, you want to sing that song? I'll say I've never sung it before. You want to sing it?
yeah, let me pull it up right here, right quick, and I think I've got it here on my phone. So
We'll see if you can play it because I think if I play it, it'll overpower both of us. So because I can't. This is on the
well,
website.
I'll just try to sing it a cappella.
Okay.
I actually did that on the radio the other night. So
All right.
I don't claim to be the best of singers, Daniel, but I sing to the Lord,
Okay.
and that's all I can say. I sing to Him in worship. Turn your eyes on Jesus, and here it
All
comes.
right.
Oh, so are you weary
Three.
and troubled? No light in
Light.
darkness
Darkness
you
you
see.
see.
There's
There's a
light
light
for
for
a look
look at
at the Savior,
Savior.
and life
Life
more
more
abundant
abundant,
and free.
free.
Turn
Turn
your
your
eyes
eyes
upon
on
Jesus.
Jesus.
Look
Look
full
full
in his
his
wonderful
wonderful
face,
face,
and
and
the
the
things
things
of
of
earth
earth will
will grow
grow
strangely
strangely dim
dim in
in the
the light
light
of
of
his
his
glory
glory
and
and
grace.
grace. All right. You want to do you want to do second verse?
Yeah, let's do one more. I like this. I'm going to read it for us singing it. It says, "His word shall not fail you."
Okay.
He promised. You know, we've got to stand upon God's word in the day we live in. Like I said, men may fail you. These people may make prophecies and they not come true, but the Bible will never fail you tonight. His
His
word
word
shall
will
not
not
fail
fail
you.
you.
He promised.
Promised.
Believe
Believe
him,
him.
and all
All
will
will
be
be
well.
well.
Then go
Go
to
to
a
a
world
world
that
that
is
is
dying,
dying.
his perfect
Perfect
salvation
salvation
to
to tell.
tell. Turn
Turn
your
your eyes
eyes upon
on
Jesus.
Jesus.
Look
Look full
full in
in
his
his
wonderful
wonderful face,
face, and
and
the
the
things
things
of
of
earth
earth will
will grow
grow
strangely
strangely dim
dim in
in
the
the
light
light
of
of
his
his
glory
glory
and
and
grace.
grace. Kevin Shrum, what a great way to end the broadcast. I appreciate you so much for coming on. I appreciate your Bible knowledge as well and your uplifting spirit. Can we have you on again sometime?
Yeah, I would definitely love to be back on with you, Daniel. Like I said, I've listened to you from the start, and I appreciate the work you do.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening.